Yeah, hi, this is Diana McIntyre, same one as last week. I think you're going to enjoy this presentation. Okay, Diana, thank you.
You're going to start just like that?
Yep.
Okay, hello again. We're going to start out with the gray whale, since it's the animal that a lot of people come here to see, and it's the one that we count offshore. As you can see on the screen, there is a picture of one underwater. It's not a beautiful whale. It's not the biggest, it's not the smallest, but it's our whale. Some people call it the California whale, but it's now what, the Eastern Pacific whale. Let's see, I guess we'll go on from there. It's not moving.
Okay, try this one. If that doesn't work.
I'm pushing down.
Okay,
You get to look at it a little longer here.
I wonder why.
I don't know.
Arrows or up and down arrows?
I'm doing the up arrow, the down arrow, and the right and left arrow. Wow. Okay, let's see.
I'm going to do the whole thing looking at.
You might have to go back out and start again. That's the same thing that happened to me 2 weeks ago, and I've seen it on other Zoom formats, that if you sit on the one screen for too long, you kind of have to go back out and start again.
Okay, so Norm, do I press escape or
Try escape or try unsharing the screen.
do I stop the share first? I'll be back, guys. Or we're here, still here. Okay, now go to stop video.
Okay. No, you don't want to stop your video. Just try sharing the screen again.
Oh, wait, share the screen?
Yes.
Okay,
Now we want to.
no, it's frozen, Norm.
No frozen?
Yeah, it's frozen.
And you may have to stop PowerPoint and restart it.
So how about escape?
Yes. Okay.
Try escape. No, that's not working. Stop share. Go to exit full screen. Okay, now,
You need to have a technical difficulties sign to put up.
yeah, that's a thought for the sometime soon. Take the safely remove hardware, eject. Your device is currently in use, close any programs, and then try again. How do I close this, darn it? What's next? Oh,
Okay.
okay, maybe I unfroze it.
Good.
Okay, so now wait, how do I get back?
Okay, I
It's
think
ridiculous. Oh, wait,
yes, it's
it's
working.
unfrozen.
We're working.
We're trying to get back with you guys.
These calls are getting exciting, Ann.
Now, where do I get to?
That one.
I know, but I want to get back with them.
Oh, okay.
So do I go to post attendees Zoom? No.
No. You want to share and share your screen.
I want to find share. I haven't found it yet.
Bottom center, green button.
Say what? Front and center. No, there's no green button here right now.
Move
It's
your cursor down into that area.
Say what?
It goes away unless your cursor is down along the bottom.
Okay, my cursor's on the bottom. There's Zoom. But is that the? No. Golly gee, this is ridiculous.
You're within the Zoom window.
There's the Zoom window.
Okay.
Okay, now. There's everybody. Now, share screen. No, don't want that one. Diana's laughing at me.
I'm laughing at the situation, not
Yeah.
at you.
Okay, come on. Let's do it, come on. Where's the right, start, pause and stop recording. Participants, hi, Elizabeth. speaker view. Galley view, exit full screen recording. Are you guys listening to me? Norm?
We are.
Yes, I can hear you.
This is getting embarrassing. Okay, galley,
Just don't say any bad words.
I'm in galley view. I'm trying to find,
You should be finding the share screen button down towards the center bottom.
but that talks about the host.
Oh, do you need to be
There's a stop video screen, stop video button. And that says select a camera, choose virtual background, choose video filter, video settings. No.
She needs to be assigned the host.
She is assigned co-host. I just checked, and she is the co-host.
Your co-host.
So you need to try to find the share screen button at the bottom.
I'm at the share screen button at the bottom, but that only talks about the window comes up that says who can share, only host. The advanced sharing options comes up under share screen.
Are you clicking on the green part or the little up arrow to the right of the green part?
The up arrow. So now click on the green part. Oh, there you go. Okay. Can you guys see that?
It's coming up.
It's coming up.
There
Yeah,
you
we see
go.
it.
Now
Now
go
go to slideshow.
Yes, there you go.
from beginning.
I'm beginning. Phew. Okay, now.
Hey.
Okay,
Yay.
you're on.
We'll review the whale. They are all warm-blooded. They have hair. They're air-breathing with lungs like we have. They give live birth and they enjoys milk. We still have trouble with that E. But I remember it. That's one thing. Okay, the gray whales are in the order Cetacea, which is marine mammals, whales, dolphins, and porpoise. They all live their whole lives in the water. Now, there are some other animals that live a lot in the water, but they come out. But these guys don't, or if they do, they're in trouble. It's a suborder Mystacete, which is sort of like mustache because they have baleen, not teeth, but they do have tooth buds when they're forming, but those are reabsorbed before birth. Just as the hind limbs are. When they're fully formed, they have only a couple of bones back where legs would be. And they have two blowholes on the surface. The genus is Ecristius, and the species is Ecristius robustus. If you're going to learn any scientific phrases, that's probably one that would be good to know, which is Ecristius robustus. That's the gray whale. As I mentioned, he's the only animal in his category. Like all gray whales, they don't echolocate, but they do have a little tiny bit of a melon. We don't know if they can hear others echolocating, which is extremely high, or if they actually can make echolocation sounds. There are people working on that. They make very low sounds that can be heard for very, very long distances underwater. They're a medium-sized whales. 50 feet is the longest, is the biggest that we've had. Most are 40 to 45 feet is an average adult size. And they weigh about 40 tons, full grown. Females are slightly larger than males, which is true of all baleen whales, including the blue whale, because you hear that it's the largest animal that's ever lived. Well, that was a female. Here's a schematic of the gray whale showing the parts and pieces. We start at the left. You can see in the left-hand corner where the baleen is showing. Now the baleen grows only in the upper jaw, not in the lower jaw at all. You see what's called the rostrum. It's the area between the nasals and the mouth. It's like your upper lip, but it's rather much bigger. And then you can see the blowholes are just behind where the eye is. Then we have barnacles on the back. And then we go, instead of a dorsal fin, we have dorsal ridges. And the first one is the big one, the major one. And they have varying numbers of bumps afterwards that do not correspond to the vertebrae. And we used to think that the males had so many bumps and the females had so many. And we sit there and count them, and it was not relevant at all. The flukes are behind, they are parallel or they are horizontal, and that's what pushes the animals through the water, the up and down movement. And then we get to the urogenital area. In a female, the urogenital slit includes the anus. With a male, the anus is behind. So if you see the underside of the whale, you can probably tell what sex it is, if you can see that. And then there are mammary slits. The female has that. The male sometimes will have creases there that look like the mammary slits, but they're not. And what's that one? I can't see it. Oh, there's his belly button. He's a good mammal like the rest of us. And the front flippers have all the bones that we have in our hands and arms. And what else do I have? And oh, the gray whale has a few
Throat grooves?
throat grooves, right, up to 5, 2 to 5. The Balanopteras have many, like 100 or something, and their throats will really bloom out when they're feeding, but gray whales just bloom out a little bit. And migration, it is going from one area to another and then returning. It's usually done to find food and a good place to breed and give birth, and that's true with the gray whales because they migrate and feed in the north in the colder seas, and they go down to Mexico to give birth and to mate, but they do that on the way down too. Eastern Pacific gray whale migration. They travel up to 14,000 miles round trip. You will hear different numbers from different people, but you would have to find a whale at the southern end, which could be somewhere in Mexico, and find that animal again up around Alaska, and then figure out how many miles it went one way. So it's general, it isn't specific. It could be 15,000, it could be 8,000, but 14,000 seems to make most everybody fairly happy. Average 4 knots, and a knot is about 5 miles an hour. Their maximum speed is 12 knots. When they're harassed, they will go up to 12 knots. They head south when the weather gets bad. Now, it might be causing what we see to be a little bit later. If it's warmer up north and they're still feeding, they're not going to leave. But if it gets really cold and the food disappears, then they head south. And we start, well, occasionally there's some here even in the summertime. But, and I think we've seen some so far this year. But really around November, December, they start going south. And they start doing the census from our back patio on December 1st. And they continue until about mid-May. Once they go 3 days without any whales, then that's the end of it. Here are the lagoons that they go to the south. Laguna Guerrero Negro, I don't think there are many in there anymore. Ojo de Lebre or Scabbins Lagoon, there are great numbers that go in there, but there's also a big salt mine there. But that's where was one of the major whaling lagoons was Scammons Lagoon. That's what the Americans call it. It's Ojo de Lebre or Aya the Jackrabbit in Spanish. San Ignacio is where most of the trips that go to see whales down there go now. They get quite a few whales in there, and then more whales are found down in Bahia Magdalena. That's where they did the original gray whale whaling, was in Magdalena. And way back there used to be whales in some lagoons on the Mexican mainland where they went around the end of the Sea of Cortez and in. And I think a few have been spotted over there in recent years, but not very many. When they're going by here, they're mainly traveling. So the first thing you would see would be the blow, which is generally heart shape. If you are in the right area and it's not windy, you will see the heart shape. Then in the second photograph, you see the back, and then they go down. That would be in the diagram number 1, 2, and then number 3, you get over to the third picture where the back humps up and they go down, and usually the tail goes up. And that means they're going for a deep dive, which can be 7 minutes or so. The others are short dives, 1, 2, and then you do a long dive, and then you do short. Now that's the general pattern. Sometimes they do it twice, sometimes they do it once, sometimes they do 4 short ones, but this is the general pattern. They're just like the rest of us, they aren't that. The flukes come up usually on a deep dive, and each lobe is called a fluke. So together they're flukes. It's the powerhouse. And if you're on a boat and the flukes come up, you hear the cameras clicking all over the place. That seems to be a favorite thing to photograph. Then when they go down, they leave this kind of pattern on the lower right. Some people call them footprints, but they don't have feet. Are they fluke prints or whale prints? The biggest one is the farthest away. The newest one is ahead of us. The whale is ahead of us. The closest spot is the oldest, and each one comes up small and then it spreads out. Okay, and this is because of the flukes going up and down below. And you can do this if you're in a pool. You can take your hands together and shove them up and you will get the same kind of, you'll get fluke prints. Other behaviors, the breaching is coming out of the water and splashing. They can do it on their stomachs, their backs, their sides. I don't think there's a picture that I've seen where they get entirely out of the water. Humpbacks do. They can sometimes get clear of the water. Spy hopping is a very quiet thing. They come up like they're on an elevator, and usually the eye, you feel like they're looking at you. You don't know for sure if they are or not, and then they go down again. But breaching is very noisy and splashy, and spy hopping is very quiet. They do tail sailing. I've seen females do this to avoid males. And lunging is sort of halfway between a spy hop and a breach. I'll have to get a picture of that. Here are the bones inside the flipper. Now these are only from the wrist down. They have the upper arm bones as well, but they are flattened. They are elongated and within the skin. So they are much more efficient than they would be if they were fingers out in the open. Some have more and some have less than humans do. Flippers are used for steering, and the tail is the power. They have double blowholes because they're baleen whales. And those are closed when they're relaxed. When they exhale, that opens them. There's another muscle down below that closes it. So even if some water comes in, when they can close that up so it doesn't go into their lungs. When they exhale, it opens them, and they quickly inhale. You have to be really close to them to even hear the inhale, but it has to happen before they get back under the water or they'll drown. They exchange 90% of the air in their lungs. Humans tend to exchange about 15%. And the eyeball is about the size of a small orange. You can see Dr. Floyd Durham holding one on the left. barnacles. Now, some people call these parasites. A true parasite, though, does harm to the host. And this might slow them down a little bit, but we don't think that it really hurts the whales. They have one kind of barnacle, and which is on the left, and they have 3 species of cyanids. Those are the whale lice. Let's see, the 3 species are Cyanid scammani, that's the one there on the left, and that's the one that the gray whales have the most of, and only gray whales have it. There is Cyanid setae, which is shared with other whales, and the rarer one is Kessleri, which is usually underneath or under the flippers. But the scammani are usually up on top. They're bigger, they're kind of round, and okay, they call them whale riders. I think that's a better term. And this shows you diagrams of the ones I've just mentioned. And scammani is on the right. It's the bigger one, and it's the most, on a gray whale, that's mostly what you have. And the dorsal ridges, now they come in all sizes and shapes and numbers. We used to count them because we thought females had 9 and males had 14 or other way around, and that turned out not to be so. Throat grooves, that's GG there. This one has 2 throat grooves, and it helps with their suction feeding, which they do on the bottom. They generally feed on their right side, like the illustration in the left upper corner. They make several scoops, and these on the right and the lower left show you where the scoops have been taken and rise to the surface, filtering out the food, probably using their tongue to get the sand and the water out. And then they have to swallow what is left inside. And gammarid amphipods, upper left-hand corner, are what they generally feed on. Now they get a lot of other things too, but that's the main part of their, and below that are the little tubes that these guys live in. They're at about 100 feet up off of Alaska in certain areas. And then on the right is gray whale baleen with the food on it. So you can see water can go through the baleen and not disrupt the food in the sand. And they sometimes will feed on mysid shrimp. The ones we've seen here in the summer feeding, they will take in kelp, and the kelp goes out the other end looking just the same, but it's the mysid shrimp that are in the kelp that they're retaining. That seems to be a summer snack. Reproduction. They mature at about 8 years of age. Females give birth approximately every 2 years. If a female loses her young and they're still down south, she may become pregnant again in the same season. And on the right, I think we have a female with a young next to it. They used to think all of the young were born in the lagoons. We found that's not true. We see several newborns going south before they even get to the lagoon. We do not know what the survival rate is of those because they are out in the open ocean. They're not protected like they would be in the lagoons. But some of the moms can't wait to get to the lagoons and they have the babies earlier. Go away.
Go away. No.
No? Okay, you're gonna make it go.
There.
Oh, okay, that was very simple if you know what to do. Okay, courtship behavior. There's lots of rubbing, foreplay before, usually more than one male is involved. On the right, you see the penis of a of a gray whale, which can be up to 6 feet long. It's one of the longest whale penises, or one of the longest penises there is. And it's almost prehensile. It kind of hunts around to find the opening to the vagina. And it's not blood engorged like humans. It is, it's fibroelastic. And let's see, so it's kind of that size and shape all the time, but it's kept inside. And then when he's aroused, he brings it out. And I've never found out, is that where his penis, I mean, that's where he urinates also?
I don't know.
The same place? I need to go into that, I guess. What else am I? Fibroelastic, I said 6 feet, usually more than one. Lots of foreplay. Okay, sperm competition. Females will breed with whatever, almost any male that approaches her. And it's usually the last one who blasts out the sperm of the previous ones. That will be the father of the offspring. Some other animal species have this as well.
Diana,
Yes.
if they lose the baby and then have another one, then that one is born way out of season then, right? When they're back up in Alaska?
I'm not aware of any being born out of season. The
If they lose the calf, then they go into estrus again and they can become pregnant again?
yes,
So wouldn't they be off season? I mean,
during
at
the
different times?
season she loses it and mates again, it would probably take, but she doesn't do it out of season. She only allows a male to enter her when it's the right time. And a lot of animals have that. They won't mate off time. But if she loses it at the beginning of the season, then she would come into estrus again and she would accept a male and she could get pregnant again. Okay.
And then it'll be out
then-
of sequence with the rest of them?
She would have a newborn
Yeah,
every
yeah.
year. They're 12 to 15 feet long, although I've seen them at 10 feet. They are born head or tail first. I think 6 that have been observed, 3 were head first and 3 were tail first. The flukes are folded at birth, but they stiffen up within a day or 2. As the female swims, she makes a current that the baby sits right next to the right of her. It will be carried along even before its flukes are fully formed. The lower left is a newborn. They're really quite skinny, so they can get out. On the right, we believe, are placenta. Elisa took this and she was down off San Diego and she couldn't get the boat captain to let her go over and pick this up to find out for sure. But they do have double uteruses. And so this would fit, and birds attack it after it's there and then it disappears. So it's the only photo of that I've ever seen, but we think that's what it is. The newborn, this one has a lot more white on it than most do, but you can see the dimples. And we call it the big gray pickle, because that's kind of what it looks like. That's just the head. You can see the eye on the left, the blowhole above, and the dimples. And here's a close-up of those dimples, and they each have a hair. And those disappear after about a year. We don't know if that has something to do with sensory when it comes up against the female or what, but most marine mammals have some hair at birth. The Western Pacific gray whale. We're the Eastern Pacific. Western Pacific, there's been a group of them over there for years, and we never knew if the 2 groups interchanged or if they were really separate. And then a few years ago, they tagged 6 whales, and they found that some of them did come here to the West Coast. One of them they tagged for a year and a half, And it came over, went back and started over again. And they got pictures of it. So they compared those pictures with other pictures here on the West Coast, and that whale had been here before. So that seems to be fairly common. The group off of Russia and Japan is a much smaller group. They have feeding grounds and so forth, and we're not sure if all the whales come over, but we know that some do. And then they go back. So then we've had some other strange sightings. The upper map shows the whales that we have here on the West Coast, and on the right, the ones off of Japan. But all of a sudden, we've had two show up in the Atlantic. And at one time, there was a population of gray whales in the Atlantic, and that's where they were first named, from bones that were found there. But same year, two different whales found in two areas, not the same whale. They took photographs of both of them. One in the Mediterranean, that's the one photographed, and the other one off of South Africa. And we're not sure, how did they get there? Did they come across through the Arctic? Did they come around South America? Probably from the Arctic, but we don't know for sure. And other famous, Gigi in 1971, she was captured down in the lagoons and brought to San Diego. She's on the left being released. She didn't have a dorsal fin, and most all of the tracking devices they had fastened onto the dorsal fin. So they put bolts in her back, corrosive bolts, and then attached it. And eventually it did fall off. It was supposed to, I think, in 6 months. But it has an antenna on it, and gray whales like to hang out in kelp. And she got into the kelp and bent the antenna. And of course, the antenna wouldn't give off any information unless it was up above the water. They followed her for a while, and then they lost her. Later, they had marked her in front, and later, a few years later, somebody found a whale they thought had the right markings. The three gray whales in 1988 that got stranded up above Alaska, one disappeared before the other two got out. And as far as we know, these were juveniles that didn't quite know that they were there, stayed too long. And then JJ, who was taken in 1997 and taken to San Diego. Also, she was kept for a year. They put tags on her. Most of them got rubbed off or disappeared. I don't know we would recognize her again if we saw her. Gray whales in the mid-1800s in San Pedro. I'll go into this a little bit later, but from 1861 to 1885, I don't think all the numbers there. The Portuguese End area had a whaling shack on the right and a close-up of it when the whalers were still there on the left. And it was a seasonal station. They came around December and left in March or April. Was manned by up to 11 to 16 men. I don't know how they all fit in that little place, but they caught more than 100 whales in 11 years. I think the number's much higher than that. They closed because of lack of wood and adequate fresh water. There was no water out here. I'll go into this more a little bit later in the talk.
You're going backwards.
But
You're going backwards.
I'm going backwards.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, so I am. Thank you. Other things, they have had their flukes cut off by propellers and still managed to survive. And we had one down in Mexico, and she had a young with her. And she would use her peduncle area sideways up and down to get by. But she was seen for several years. And one had twins, but they were joined and they passed away just after they were born.
Wow.
They don't generally have two, but you can see these would have been identical twins from one egg. And come and see Serena at PVIC. This is a female gray whale, about a year old. And whale watch near and far. The boat on the left, I'm afraid, is not still in action. It fell apart when they took it out. You can go down in the middle, you can go down the lagoons and pet whales. And on the right is our patio where the census is done. Down below is the National Marine Fisheries done up near Carmel where they count the whales, but they don't have the money to pay people every year. Elisa's group here that counts the whales been doing it 30 some years, all with volunteers. Watch for the blow. The end.
Okay, do you want
That's
to
it.
do you want a break?
Yeah, well, let's take a break and then we'll go into whaling because that's a longer one.
Like a 5-minute break, everybody?
That okay?
What do you think, Denise? Wait, I can't hear Denise. Can Denise hear me? Denise, I can't hear you.
Denise is muted.
Which one?
I still can't hear you guys.
I think it's a great idea.
Okay, so five minutes and we'll come back.
5 minutes.
That was great, Diana.
Okay, I hope you learned something.
I did. always from you.
I try to throw in something new every time if I
Do you
can.
want some water or some tea or anything?
Water would be good.
Here, I'll get you. You want it in here?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
Anne, is Diane there?
Yes, I'm still here.
Okay, we had one question, Diana, which is, will the whale census begin this year on December 1st in spite of COVID?
I don't know, but this year the grounds are open. I need to ask Elisa. She's in charge of it. And they have started Whale Watch virtually, where some of the people go. In fact, last Tuesday night was the first Zoom meeting. They're not taking any new people into that class, but I think if Elisa's doing it, she would take new people here to count the whales because she does the training. I will try to, in fact, she's been emailing me about something else and I will ask her.
And we have a question from Sue Walsh. What's the current thought on gray whale population numbers? Do we have any estimates of how many there are?
I think it's up to about 25 to 27,000.
Wow.
Wow, thank you.
We had a die-off a couple years ago and we lost several, but I think it's gone back up. That's something else I need to check on.
Diana, is the global warming, which makes the ice form later in the year, is that affecting their food supply in the north?
Is what affecting us?
Well, with the global warming and ice forming later in the year,
Yes, they
does that
think,
affect their food supply? They'd have to be later in the year?
I think the food is moving north. And so the whales have to go a little further north also to get it. Thank you. But so far it has, I don't think it's affected their numbers. Whether it will in the future, I don't know.
Thank you.
As long as there's food there, they'll be here. Oh my. Thank you.
That's hazelnut. Is hazelnut good or do you want vanilla or chocolate? Are you fine with hazelnut? I guess you are.
Whatever. I think this is a chocolate one. Any other questions? Oh, thank you. 2.
Yeah, and there's more.
I'm making a mess though.
And are you setting up the next set of slides?
Say again?
Are you setting up the next set of slides?
Yeah. It's whaling. You want to put that up, the first one?
Sorry, I'll just stay on.
In my face, yeah.
Denise, where's Denise?
I'm here.
Why don't I switch out to the next presentation?
Excellent. Excellent idea.
Get you a paper towel.
Okay.
Okay, so, okay now. Click to exit.
Yep.
Okay. Let's close this. Next one, whale history updated copy. Screen sharing has stopped as the shared window is closed. Did I do that?
Yeah, once you close the presentation, then you're not sharing anymore. So once you get the new presentation up, then you want to share again.
All right. Okay, so now how do I get this down? Man, oh man.
I'm gonna have to get rid of that.
Oh, yeah, say okay. And then go to, golly gee. Stop, how did I do it? Oh, this, that's it. There it is. Okay. Now where is it? Whaling history update.
Yeah. Good. Now,
It's taking its time.
did you open the presentation?
It's, the circle's going around. It's slowly opening.
Okay.
There it is.
PowerPoint, right.
We're not seeing it. You opened up the file, the list of files.
Coming up too now.
So you need to stop sharing and go back and reshare it.
There it is.
Now, what did you say?
Stop sharing and then go back and
Oh,
open.
because you can't see it?
Right. We're only seeing your list of files, Ann.
Yeah, you go back and choose the presentation to share.
When you say go back and choose the
Go
presentation.
up above.
Stop sharing this.
Go back out, stop sharing.
Okay, now I don't know how to get there. Like this?
Now
No.
open the presentation.
Can you see it?
Yes.
Good. So now go to slideshow.
Now share. Did you
No,
share?
you're sharing.
Oh, we can see it. So, duh, sorry.
Don't confuse me.
Yay,
Okay, you got it?
we got it.
Okay,
All right. We have time to start again.
you can start now. You can start whenever you want.
Okay,
Okay, ready.
right there. Okay, are we ready to go again?
Ready to go, Diana. Is everyone back?
Do we have everybody back yet?
Anyone not back, please raise your hand.
Okay, I will do a general history of whaling, and then we'll get specific into what happened locally. Okay, the first whalings were before they had boats. How they found out that whales had value were strandings. And there have been strandings all over the world for a long, long time. And they're happening still today. In fact, we had a huge one down in Tasmania, over 200 pilot whales. Aboriginal groups in many areas of the world whaled once they got boats. Then they could go out. And this was shore whaling. Indigenous Alaskans on the left, on the right was on the East Coast. On the lower left is off Japan, And I can't see the one on the right to see what it was. It looks like there's ice, so it was somewhere up north, I imagine. But they would,
It says Point Barrow.
what?
It says on the picture Point Barrow.
Oh, okay, it is. Up north was right. That's where they take bowhead whales and still do today. Okay. But shore whaling was where you went from shore in a small boat, you killed the whale, you brought it ashore to render it. And when I was up in Canada, this is a model of Red Bay where the Portuguese and the Spanish came over with Cabot, and they had right whales and bowhead whales that they took, hundreds of them. And they've made a park into the area where they used to take the whales. And then as technology got better, they got much bigger ships. They could go out to wherever the whales were, then put smaller whaling boats into the water. These were the killer boats, the small ones. And they would bring the whale back to the big ship where it was on the right. They had a stage where they would unwrap the whale, so to speak. They would cut the blubber, and then from up on the boat, they would pull the blubber and the whale would go round and round and round. But the blubber was one of the most important parts of the whale that they wanted. And then you can see in the upper left, there's the small whaling boat. On the right is the cross section of the larger ship with all the barrels of oil. That's what they wanted, and that's what came from the blubber. And the economics back in this kind of shows when it was most profitable to whale, when they whaled the most. It doesn't go up to today though, but there was a lot more going on in the 1800s. And these are the oils. We had oil lamps. That was the main thing it was used for. Even streetlights were used whale oil. In the 1860s, petroleum came on the scene. Kerosene and other things were much cheaper and much easier to come by. And that sort of killed the oil trade in whaling. Another thing they took was whalebone or bone. In the reports, it'll see there's so much sperm whale and so much bone. And this is what they're talking about is baleen. And we have a piece of it on display here. It's keratin. It grows in the upper jaw, and the right whale and the bowhead whale had extremely long baleen. I think bowhead one was 16 feet long. I have one at home that's about 12 feet. And I think the one we have here,
That's been used for
it's on display.
Yeah.
It's what, about 12 or 14 feet. And it was very flexible. It was the plastic of the day. On the right are some of the uses of it. I tried to get it bigger to read them off, but I have the original. If somebody really wants to know it, I could send that to them. But it was boning for women's fashion. It was made into shoes that had curly toes. It was all kinds of things. But if you heat it and press it into the shape you want when it cools off, it will keep that shape. And these are the whales that had that good baleen, the right whale and the bowhead. And the bowhead baleen's a little longer than the right whale. Now, bowheads are found only in the North Pacific, the North, actually, around the Arctic. Right whales are found in the North Atlantic, the North Pacific, off of South Africa, off of Australia, off of South America. And this was another famous whale to catch. It was too fast and it didn't float, but it had the habit of going down below for a long time. Whoops, I'm going to come out.
Sorry, okay, go ahead.
Okay. And, but it would come back up in the same, just about the same place. So the whalers knew this, and they would see some breathing on the surface. They would breathe for maybe 45 minutes or so and then dive. And they would put the whale boats in the water in that location and wait. Probably 45 minutes to an hour and a half. Later, the whales would come back to the surface for air, and then they would pursue them and harpoon them and drag them back to the big ship. In the late 1860s, Norwegian discovered the whaling harpoon and the slipway. The slipway on the right is a modern one, but this was a big ship where they could drag the whale up onto the ship after they harpooned it. And this kind of harpoon actually killed the whale. The old harpoons fastened the whale to the whalers in the small boat, but then they had to get into the boat. They had to get up close to the whale to actually kill it. This, with the harpoon gun, did both of those things. It would blow up in some cases, or if they hit the right area, it killed the whale, and then they would drag it in up the slipway onto the ship where they could render it. And later, these were whaling ships. In the lower left is a killer ship, the little boat that goes with it. The bigger one up above on the right in the back would be the slipway. They would drag the whale up into the first part, take most everything off, then drag it up to the first part, I think to the first part of the ship. And I think it was something like 25 minutes, they could take it down to nothing or just to parts. Antarctic whaling was very, very big. New England or England and Norway had harbors down there. This is a photo I took down of the abandoned whale station, but they had people who went down there and lived there for 6 months and took whales. They rendered them over here, and they had tanks for the oil. In 1920s, this was very, very big, and they pretty much decimated the whales down there. Then we had the West Coast whaling. This is back in the sailing days. Most of it went out of the East Coast. Captain Charles Melville Scammon was a whaler, but he was also sort of a biologist, and he wrote a book about what they did. And a lot of what we know about whaling here came from that book. We have a copy here. And that's the gray whale. You saw the one on the upper left before, and there's another one below that's just finishing a breach. And they used to whale down in Mexico in the lagoons, and the whale didn't die peacefully. Right whales don't fight back. You just kill them and they float and they die. But gray whales, and a lot of times they would go after the babies that had been born down there, and the mother would come to protect them, and they would take both. But the whales flailed a lot, and they broke up boats. Men had to climb up in the mangrove trees to get that surround the lagoons to get away from them. But there were several lagoons in Baja where this went on. They didn't use the big ships here. They just used the small ones. And then they had a rendering place on shore. And this is the one up near San Francisco on the left. These are some of the weekly magazines illustrating the area. And I think we have this down at the center. This is where the whaling stations were in California and in Baja California, Mexico. And here's our peninsula. And you can see where we had the whaling. And then there was a short time a whaling station down in San Pedro. But the city of San Pedro did not have a whaling station. And here's the one that we had at Portuguese Bend. From the lower picture, you can see the building is quite a bit larger than it looked before. I think the upper picture we saw before with a couple of the whalers looks like they're in the pot, but they might have been sitting behind it. But they had 11 to 16 men living in that facility because it took five men in a boat to go out and kill the whale. And one man had to go up on the cliff with a stick with a rag or something on it to spot the whales. And when he did, he could whistle or yell or something. And then the whalers would get into the whale boats and go out to where he pointed with the stick and kill the whale and bring it ashore. It was a type of shore whaling. Here's some of the tools. They had whale guns, but you could only use those in very calm areas. Otherwise, if your boat's bouncing up and down, you don't do very well. And then those are the hand harpoons. And there's whaling boats. They did have sails if you needed them. They had lots of oars. They didn't use the sails. It had to be pretty windy. And flensing is taking the blubber off, cutting it down. And these are some of the tools used for that, to boil it down into oil. And these pictures were taken here in Southern California. That isn't our area, it's further south. And I have a friend who's trying to find out exactly where this whaling station was, but ours was very similar. And they were not funded particularly well. They used odds and ends of materials, whatever they could find. So they had little pots, big pots, whatever. But you see the barrels up above, that's how everything was stored. And this is the area, let's see, about 1920 on the left is the whaling station. The same area in 1960, this is Portuguese Bend, named for the Portuguese whalers that used to hang out there. And this is the area today. The landslide in Portuguese Bend has obliterated the area where the whaling station was. It would be on the right-hand corner of the bay. San Diego had the first whale watch, so to speak. They took people by boat out to where the whale was on the beach, and they paid $1 a piece to go out and see the whale. So they were whale watching. We had other kinds of whaling here in the 1920s and 30s. They took blue whales for Dr. Ross dog food. And Ed, the man in the upper left-hand corner, worked 5 seasons with this. It was a Norwegian owner, and I'm in the midst of doing some more research on this. And there's the blue whales that they were taking for the dog food. They took fin whales one year, but he said they were just all bones. There wasn't enough meat on them. The International Whaling Commission was formed in 1946 by whaling nations interested in keeping enough whales alive so they could keep whaling. And they established quotas. Over the years, many whaling countries changed into mostly non-whaling nations interested in saving whales. In 1986, a resolution to not whale without a permit that they put out, is in effect today. USSR underreported how many whales they took for years. At least 3 decades. I'm touching things.
And I'll move it.
Oh, God.
All right, I'll try not to touch the wrong things.
Okay.
All right, approximately 180,000 whales were killed that we didn't know about. Whaling today in the Faroe Islands, They round up pilot whales and bang on their boats and drive them ashore. This year, Sea Shepherd went offshore and drove the whales out to sea instead. We hope that's going to save some of them. And Tai Chi is still going on over in Japan.
Tai Chi?
Yeah, they call it that. I think that's the name of the town.
Oh,
They take dolphins, they kill most of them and use them for food and fertilizer, but they take some for oceanariums as well. Several organizations have been fighting this for years, but so far nothing has happened. Japan is, I don't know if their research group went out this year. I didn't get anything about that. In Iceland and Norway, this is in Bergen. This is whale meat out and people are buying it. This crazy American was just taking pictures of it.
you?
Yeah,
Is that
me.
you?
Yeah, it was me. Subsistence whaling is still going on. Greenland is taking some humpbacks. There's controversy there because they're only supposed to take it for their own use and they're selling it. Alaska is still allowing Inuits to take bowheads. And I don't know, the macaw thing down in Washington, I don't know what's happened with that yet. And Russia, they will take some gray whales. They used to feed the chinchillas with it. I don't know. The lower right-hand corner is a picture from that whaling. Whale watching, of course, has become bigger than whaling. And we have it off of here. I guess that's it. There.